Hi everybody, Jeff Yastine here. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook. The username is Jeff Yastine1, and on Twitter it's at Jeff Yastine. So at the time I'm taping this here today, Wednesday, we don't yet have an outcome to the presidential election. But one thing is for sure, renewable energy stocks have been taking off in a big way. Now I am doing a trading room seminar tomorrow, Thursday, about these stocks and looking at my favorites among that whole sector, and there's a lot of them there. But I want to tell you right now about a stock that I told you about in August that looks very, very promising. This stock is called Hyster-Yale, symbol HY. And as we look at the chart here, you can see where it has been in this long, relatively narrow trading range, given the overall price range, going back numerous years for the stock. This company and the stock has been in a trading range between basically the mid-30s and the mid-40s for most of the past year. And then suddenly, on the day after the election here, it broke higher in a big way, moving up. At one point, I saw it up 12%. I like the look of this chart. I think this is a breakout, and it's an important one for this company. Now, I told you about it in August. I think it was August 12th was the day I posted the video. And at the time, the stock was basically about 12% lower. So it's basically been flat for the last handful of months here. It's still buyable here. And in fact, that's one thing I would point out when you're looking at stocks to buy at a time like this, where there's a whole sector that's in the headlines, because of a presumption of a Biden presidency. But frankly, if President Trump gets a second term, these stocks will still do very, very well. And that's sort of a broader point I want to make here, is that, there's an impulse at times like now, like, oh man, I got to buy it because it's all about Biden, or it's all about, one piece of news or another. You need to take a step back, and if you're doing options, that's one thing. But if you're talking about buying stocks, you got to take a step back and basically give a stock room to move, all right? Because these stocks don't always, just explode higher the day after, certainly not the day after I file a video most of the time. And sometimes it takes weeks and months, and then suddenly, boom, they move higher in a huge way, and they keep going that way. I think that's what we're looking at here with Hyster-Yale. Now, it doesn't mean that I think the stock's going to move up 50% in a week or a month, but I think it's one of those stocks that will just continue to gain ground from here based on what I see of this chart. There's also a lot to speak of regarding the company itself, and I want to go a little more deeply into that, just to kind of refresh your memory about what I said of this company in August, and specifically why I called it a forgotten fuel cell stock. So Hyster-Yale is a fascinating company. Its main business is manufacturing, sales, and service of forklifts. So they build forklifts for e-commerce warehouses, and they build forklifts of other industrial natures to move rough goods and piles of rock and dirt and other sorts of things like that over and around a work yard. So Hyster-Yale, that's their main business, and it's a very, very profitable business. This is a company that's paid a nice roughly 2.5% dividend since it went public, and it is a company that is consistently profitable. More on that later. So why do I call it a forgotten fuel cell stock? The reason why is because Hyster-Yale some years ago bought a private company. Natera manufactures fuel cells. So what Hyster-Yale was doing is basically saying, you know what, our main business is building forklifts, but we see a big business in the future manufacturing and selling fuel cells for those forklifts, as well as a great many other electrified vehicles. So that's what they began to do. Natera has manufacturing sites for its fuel cells in China. They have another one in Europe, and they are in the process of constructing one in the United States. What Hyster-Yale sees as a future for fuel cells is this. they see fuel cells going into forklifts. Now, Plug Power also makes forklifts that are powered by fuel cells. In hyster-yale's case, what they've done, they've constructed their fuel cells to fit into the battery boxes that a battery-powered electric forklift would typically use. And if you've ever seen one of these batteries that's in a forklift, some of them weigh a ton or more than that. And they have to be winched out, hauled out, and recharged, and a new one, a powered battery, dropped back in, and they can send the forklift back out onto the warehouse floor. That takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. You need a special room to store those batteries in because they actually give off hydrogen in the sort of cooling off phase as they're recharged. As where with a fuel cell, you can recharge it in just a couple of minutes, and there's no need to pull a battery out or anything like that. So hyster-yale builds their fuel cells through their Natera fuel cell division to drop these fuel cells right into the box that would otherwise have a battery in it. So I mentioned that hyster-yale has profits, and it is a consistently profitable company. And we can see it right here. Analysts expect the company, even with the disruptions of the pandemic, to earn $1.57 a share this year and $2.24 a share next year. That's really good. Again, how many fuel cell stocks do we know about that actually earn real profits? Meanwhile, let's look at revenues. That's what we call the top line numbers. And look at these, $2.5 billion earned in 2015. Let's say just slightly less than that, 2.5 billion in 2016, 2.8 billion, or we can round it up to 2.9 billion, 2017, 3.1 billion, 2018, rising to basically 3.3 billion. So there you go. Hyster-yale, symbol HY. I think the stock is just starting to break out here, and I see the stock moving higher in a consistent way in coming months, and think that this is a great spot to be buying an overlooked fuel cell stock, an overlooked fuel cell company, and yet at the same time you're buying a company that is geared towards the growth of the global economy, the growth of the US economy, the growth of the Chinese economy because they have operations in China, as well as the overall growth and excitement that comes from the possibility of hydrogen and fuel cells becoming a bigger mix of the U.S. Energy market and the transportation fuel market over the next 10 years or so. If you like what I'm talking about, make sure to subscribe and follow me on social media. I'm Jeff Yastine.